$600,000 beats $1 million. Not metaphorically, mathematically. And I'm going to prove it to you in the next few minutes using data that your financial advisor almost certainly never put in the same conversation as your balance statement. Here's what the math looks like before I say anything else. $600,000 invested at 55. Growing at 7% annually, the historical long-run average for a diversified index portfolio becomes approximately $1,180,000 by the time you turn 65. Research by Wade Pfau estimates that approximately 77% of a portfolio's final retirement outcome can be explained by the returns of the first 10 years, not your lifetime average, the first decade. So the person who retired with $1 million at 65 and immediately began withdrawals is already playing defense in the most critical window of their financial life. The person who had $600,000 at 55 and let it compound for 10 years, the plane is already airborne. The 2025 EBRI survey found that 40% of retirees left the workforce earlier than planned. A separate EBRI study of 3,600 retirees aged 62 to 75 found that 58% had retired earlier than planned. According to Fidelity Investments' 2025 retiree healthcare cost estimate, the average 65-year-old who retired in 2025 will spend an average of $172,500 on healthcare and medical expenses throughout retirement, not including long-term care costs. And according to AARP, the ACA subsidies that kept early retiree premiums manageable from 2021 through 2025 expired at the end of last year, meaning the healthcare gap between early retirement and Medicare just got dramatically more expensive for everyone. That $1 million retirement target your advisor put on the whiteboard, it's wearing a costume. By the time you account for healthcare, tax structure, sequence risk, and the brutal reality that most people don't get to choose when they stop working, that $1 million at 65 is often worth less than $600,000 with 10 years of runway ahead of it. That is what this video is about. Here's what I'm going to walk you through. There are 4 distinct dimensions where the timing and position of your money matters more than the balance, and each one compounds on the last. By the 4th dimension, the math stops being surprising and starts being genuinely alarming. I'm also going to build you a specific, realistic scenario with actual numbers, so you can map this onto your own situation. But first, the central frame, the metaphor I want you to carry through everything I'm about to say. Think about a plane on a runway. A plane needs fuel to fly, obviously, but a plane also needs runway. You can load that aircraft with $1 million of fuel, but if the runway is too short, if the company pushed you off the taxiway at 53, if a health issue closed the approach, if the timing didn't work, that fuel does nothing useful. The plane sits there, fully loaded, going nowhere. A plane with $600,000 of fuel and a long runway, that plane is airborne. It's climbing, and by the time it reaches altitude, the combination of time and momentum has made it more powerful than the plane that never lifted off. I'm calling this the Runway Principle. Every point I make today is an expression of it. Write it down. The score is not the fuel. The score is the runway. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you something about Social Security timing that changes the math by more than $200,000 in lifetime income. But first, let me introduce you to Dennis. Dennis is 53 years old. He has $500,000 in his 401k. He has a solid middle management job at a company he's been with for 11 years. He plans to work until 65, hit $1 million, and retire. His advisor ran a projection. The spreadsheet looked great. Dennis feels good. Dennis has no idea what's about to happen to him. I'll come back to Dennis. Here's the first level of why the position of your money matters more than the amount. And this is the one that I find genuinely embarrassing that financial media doesn't talk about more directly. The reversal is this. You think your biggest retirement tax problem is minimizing what you pay when you withdraw. But actually, the bigger problem is that most Americans built their entire nest egg in the wrong tax bucket to begin with, and there is only a narrow window, specifically in your 50s, to fix it. Over the course of a career, the conventional wisdom has been to use pre-tax retirement accounts, your 401k, your traditional IRA. You get the deduction now, and you pay taxes later. The logic seems sound. but later arrives. And it arrives with problems that compound on each other in ways most people don't anticipate. At age 73, the IRS forces you to start taking required minimum distributions from all your traditional accounts, whether you need the money or not. If your portfolio has done well, which if you're watching this video, hopefully it has, those RMDs are large. They push your ordinary income into higher brackets. They trigger what's called IRMA surcharges on Medicare Part B and Part D premiums. The standard Part B premium is $202.90 in 2026. But that amount only applies to individuals with a 2024 MAGI of $109,000 or less. Exceed that threshold, and you're moving through 5 progressive surcharge tiers on top of your regular premium. That alone can cost thousands of dollars per year, money directly deducted from Social Security checks before they even arrive. The tax drag on a fully traditional 401k in your 60s and 70s is not a minor inconvenience. It is a structural drag that compounds over time. And here's the thing, it was preventable if you had a low-income window to work with. The Roth conversion ladder is the tool. Here is how it works in plain language. The Roth conversion ladder is a tax and retirement strategy that allows you to access retirement funds before age 59 and a half without paying penalties, while also reducing your lifetime tax burden. By converting money from a traditional IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA each year and waiting 5 years to access those conversions, you create a ladder of penalty-free withdrawals. The 5-year clock starts on January 1st of the year you do the conversion. So a conversion made in early 2025 is accessible January 1st of 2030. After reaching financial independence and leaving traditional employment, your income drops. You then convert portions of your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA each year, paying taxes at your new, much lower rate, often 10 to 12% or even 0. After 5 years, each converted amount becomes available for tax-free and penalty-free withdrawal, regardless of your age. According to ChooseFI's analysis, converting $40,000 in a year when you have no other earned income at the 12% bracket costs approximately $2,400 in taxes. That same $40,000, if left in a traditional account and eventually forced out as an RMD at 73 when you're in the 22 or 24% bracket, would cost roughly $8,000 to $9,600. You saved $6,000 on $40,000. Do that for 5 years, and the difference is $30,000 in taxes you simply didn't pay. But the runway needs to exist. You need to start your ladder 5 or more years before early retirement. Many people in the financial independence community begin in their late 30s or early 40s, creating reliable income streams for their 45 plus years. The window is there for the person at 55 with $600,000 who still has time to build the structure. It is closed or at minimum dramatically compressed for the person who worked until 65 and is now pulling from the account to live. There's a guy, not someone I know personally, but a case I came across through a financial planner in my network who retired at 56 with about $800,000. His colleagues thought he was making a mistake. Not enough cushion, not at the magic number. He spent 3.5 years doing structured Roth conversions, keeping his income in the 12% bracket, building his healthcare subsidy eligibility carefully, and letting the taxable brokerage account bridge the gap. By 59 and a half, he had over $320,000 in fully seasoned Roth accounts, never to be taxed again, invisible to MAGI, immune to RMDs. His friend, who worked until 65 and retired with $1.3 million in a traditional 401k, between income taxes on distributions, the IRMAA surcharges, and the RMD at 73 that pushed him into the 24% bracket permanently, he's effectively paying more in lifetime tax on his larger portfolio. The number was bigger, the position was worse. That is the runway principle in tax form. The plane with more fuel on the shorter runway going nowhere. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content, otherwise YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Stay with me, because what comes next is the mechanism that probably destroys more retirement plans than any other single factor, and almost nobody models it correctly when they're making their plan. The mechanism has a technical name, sequence of returns risk. The concept is counterintuitive enough that I want to slow down on it, because most people's mental model of investment risk is completely wrong. You've been told that markets average 7% annually over long periods. You know that. You believe it. The problem is that retirement portfolios taking withdrawals don't experience the average. They experience the sequence. The order in which investment returns happen matters as much as their average. Two retirees with identical average returns can have vastly different outcomes depending on whether poor years hit early or late in retirement. Let me show you the exact mechanism. Two retirees both average 5% per year over 20 years. Both withdraw $50,000 per year from $1 million portfolios. The only difference is when losses occur. Same average return, but a $665,000 difference in ending balance, and the bad sequence portfolio was in serious distress by year 5. When markets fall in the early years of retirement, you're forced to sell more shares to fund the same withdrawal at exactly the wrong time. Those shares are gone forever and can't participate in the eventual recovery. You're not just losing paper value, you're selling units at a discount and permanently reducing the base that would generate future growth. The portfolio that experienced the same market over the same period, but in reverse order, that portfolio is fine, more than fine. The math diverges dramatically based purely on which years were bad. If you made it through the first 5 years of retirement with investment gains, there was only about a 1 in 25 chance you'd subsequently deplete your savings before reaching the end of retirement, assuming you stuck with a system of fixed real withdrawals. That's Morningstar's data. The first 5 years are the entire game. Now connect this to the Runway Principle. The person with $600,000 at 55 who has not yet started mandatory withdrawals is not yet inside the sequence of returns danger zone. They are still accumulating. A bad year at 56 is painful on paper, but the portfolio doesn't have to sell to fund withdrawals. It just waits. It recovers. And because they're still employed or living on a smaller taxable base, the compounding machine keeps running. Every year you delay, Social Security reduces the amount your portfolio must provide, directly reducing your withdrawal rate during the high-risk window. This is not a minor consideration. If you retire at age 62 in 2026, your maximum Social Security benefit would be $2,969. If you retire at age 70 in 2026, your benefit would be $5,181. That is a difference of $2,212 per month, every month, for life. By waiting to claim your Social Security benefits until age 70, your monthly Social Security benefit will grow by 8% a year until you're 70. Here's the math that rarely gets said plainly enough. A $1,000 per month Social Security increase is equivalent to having approximately $300,000 more in your portfolio in terms of its withdrawal replacing power. The person who delays from 62 to 70 gains the equivalent of having $300,000 more in retirement savings from a decision, not from saving more money. That decision is available to you specifically if you have runway in your 50s. If your back is against the wall at 65 with nothing accumulated and you need the Social Security income immediately, the decision was already made for you. The person who had $600,000 at 55, structured intelligently, can let Social Security season until 70 while living on the Roth conversion ladder and a modest taxable bridge. The person who built toward 1 million at 65 and got there exactly on the nose. If there's a bear market in their first year of retirement, 2008, for example, or the corrections of 2022, they are selling shares at the worst possible time to fund living expenses, while simultaneously leaving Social Security money on the table by claiming at 62 or 63 because they need the income. The runway determines the Social Security outcome. The runway determines the sequence of returns exposure. The runway is the whole game. Here's the gap that most retirement calculators quietly skip. The years between whenever you stop working full-time and 65 when Medicare begins. For anyone who retires early, voluntarily or not, this is a financial hazard zone that can consume tens of thousands of dollars that were never budgeted. Many people qualified for a subsidy to help pay ACA premiums based on household income. But the subsidies expired at the end of 2025 and the outcome of efforts in Congress to restore them is uncertain. This is not a hypothetical. This happened in real time between the writing of most retirement planning books and the moment you're watching this video. Without a subsidy, ACA marketplace premiums for a 62-year-old typically run $1,000 to $1,800 per month in 2026. That's the full price number. If your income falls below 400% of the federal poverty level, roughly $62,600 for a single person in 2026, you may qualify for subsidies that bring it down. But if you're drawing from a traditional 401k, every dollar you take out counts as ordinary income toward that MAGI calculation. If you're drawing from a brokerage with capital gains, those count too. It takes careful architecture to stay below the subsidy threshold architecture that again requires having built the right structure in your 50s. Run the actual math. Retire at 62. 3 years to Medicare. At a conservative $1,200 a month, you're spending $43,200 in ACA premiums before you set foot in a doctor's office, paying about $12,000 to $13,000 per year in premiums per person can consume a notable portion of annual retirement income. Premiums are only part of total healthcare spending. Deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, and prescription drug costs can add several $1,000s per year. For a two-person household, the full cost of the healthcare bridge can approach $80,000 to $90,000 over 3 years. Here's a story about this that I find genuinely instructive. There was a retired architect, I'll call her Margaret, who planned meticulously for decades. She hit $850,000 in her account. At 62, her advisor told her she was ready, and she retired feeling like she'd won. Nobody had walked her through the specific numbers for the ACA cliff in her specific state and income situation. Her first year, she paid $920 a month in ACA premiums, manageable. In her second year, after the enhanced subsidy sunset, her investment income, which included a dividend-producing brokerage account she'd built, pushed her just above the 400% federal poverty level. Her monthly premium jumped to $1,680. She didn't change anything about her spending. She just crossed an invisible line. That's over $20,000 a year in premiums on a budget built for $11,000. She had to sell appreciated brokerage positions in a down market to cover the difference, locking in capital gains that pushed her income higher, which pushed her further above the subsidy threshold. You see where this goes. The Runway Principle in healthcare form. The person who built the structure in their 50s, a seasoned Roth ladder, keeping MAGI below the subsidy cliff, a health savings account funded during high income years, a taxable bridge designed not to generate visible income can navigate the pre-Medicare window with dramatically lower healthcare costs. Roth IRA distributions don't count toward MAGI. Withdrawals from a traditional 401k or IRA do. If you have both, drawing from Roth accounts first can keep your MAGI below the thresholds that shrink or eliminate your subsidy. That planning decision has to be made in your 50s. It cannot be reverse engineered at 62. The financial advisor who looked at Margaret's spreadsheet and said, "You're ready," was not wrong about the number. He was wrong about the position. Imagine if right now, staring at your retirement plan, you realize that the entire framework you've been given optimizes for one metric, the balance, and ignores the 4 metrics that actually determine whether that balance generates the life you planned. That's an uncomfortable thought. Let me give you the uncomfortable data behind it. Research from the Urban Institute found that more than half of full-time workers in their early 50s eventually leave their jobs involuntarily due to layoffs or other employer-related reasons. Analysis of health and retirement study data suggests that as many as 22 million Americans over 50 have suffered or will suffer a layoff, forced retirement, or other involuntary job separation. Of these, only a little over 2 million have recovered or will. Those numbers are worth pausing on. 22 million people, and fewer than 2 million recovered to their prior income level. Some 58% of those with high school educations who reach their 50s working steadily in long-term jobs subsequently face a damaging layoff or other involuntary separation. Yet more education provides little additional protection. 55% of those with college or graduate degrees experience similar job losses. More education doesn't protect you. A college degree doesn't protect you. A 20-year tenure doesn't protect you. Gen Z and millennials aged between 25 and 34 were typically unemployed for an average of 19 weeks when laid off, compared to employees aged 55 to 64 who are unemployed for 26 weeks. The older you are, the longer the gap. And of those who experienced layoffs at least once, 24% were not able to find a new job at all. This is where Dennis's story concludes. About 14 months after I introduced him to you, Dennis, 53, $500,000 in his 401k, solid plan, his company announced a restructuring. Voluntary early retirement packages were offered to anyone over 50. He declined. His role was eliminated 8 months later. He spent 9 months in job interviews before landing a position at a 22% salary reduction. His 401k contributions slowed to a trickle. His plan to reach $1 million at 65 never recovered. He retired at 63 with $710,000 in a traditional account, no Roth structure, no ACA bridge plan, and claimed Social Security at 63 because he needed the income. The plane was loaded with fuel. The runway ran out before he reached takeoff speed. Here's what Dennis's story would have looked like under a different mental model. If at 53, knowing the statistics, he had treated his $500,000 position as a launching platform rather than a progress bar toward a future number. If he had begun building the Roth conversion ladder even while still employed, started an HSA, mapped his Social Security delay strategy, the forced exit at 54 would have been a setback, not a catastrophe. The position would have been resilient to the interruption. That's the difference the Runway Principle makes at the operational level. Let me build you a case study with specific numbers. Real enough to be useful, generic enough to map onto your own situation. Meet Michael. He's 52. He has $380,000, $290 in a traditional 401k, 60 in a taxable brokerage, 30 in a Roth IRA he opened a few years ago and never fully funded. Household income is $115,000 a year. No pension. He plans to retire at 65. Here's what the conventional plan looks like. Max 401k contributions at $24,500 per year, plus the $8,000 catch-up available to him as a 52-year-old. At 7% annual growth, by 65, he reaches approximately $820,000 to $860,000. He claims Social Security at 65, not 62. He's being responsible at roughly $2,100 a month based on the current average. He starts withdrawing 4% per the standard rule. The plan works on a spreadsheet. Here's the alternative plan. Same Michael, same money, different positioning. Michael works at full capacity until 57, 5 more years, using every dollar of catch-up to front-load contributions. By 57, with 7% growth, he has approximately $540,000. He then drops to part-time consulting at $58,000 a year, enough to live on without touching investment accounts, while dramatically lowering his MAGI. Starting at 57, he converts $35,000 per year from his traditional 401k to a Roth IRA. At $58,000 in earned income, his combined taxable income salary plus conversion stays below the upper limit of the 12% bracket. He pays approximately $4,200 in federal tax on the conversion per year. Over 5 years, that's $21,000 in total conversion taxes paid. In exchange for $175,000 of Roth money seasoning for penalty-free access. At 62, the first rung of the ladder opens. He can access converted funds penalty-free. His Social Security is still climbing at 8% per year past his full retirement age. His ACA premiums, because his MAGI is managed around the subsidy threshold, are subsidized to roughly $400 a month rather than $1,300. At 70, he files for Social Security. His maximum benefit, built on 35 years of strong earning history and delayed 8 years past full retirement age, is approximately $4,400 to $4,800 a month, depending on his earnings history, versus roughly $2,100 had he claimed at 65. He never needed to claim early because the Roth ladder and the brokerage bridge gave him income without triggering the Social Security income test. The difference in lifetime Social Security income between claiming at 65 and claiming at 70 over a 25-year retirement, assuming a 4.5% COLA environment, is comfortably over $200,000 in nominal terms. And he paid $21,000 in conversion taxes to set up the structure that made it possible. This is what $400,000 at 52 looks like, with a 10-year runway and intentional positioning. It is not what that same $400,000 looks like if you're just counting toward a target number and waiting. Here's what I need you to take away from this video. 3 things. Not general, not inspirational. Specific to everything we just covered. First, run the healthcare number for your specific state and income level before you finalize any retirement timeline. Many people qualified for ACA subsidies to help pay premiums, but the subsidies expired at the end of 2025, and the outcome of efforts in Congress to restore them is uncertain. You cannot assume the subsidy structure from 3 years ago still applies to your plan today. Use the KFF Health Insurance Marketplace calculator for real numbers in your zip code. If those numbers don't fit your projected MAGI, then either your retirement date needs to shift or your account structure needs to change. The healthcare gap is not a footnote. For a 2-person household retiring at 62, it can easily be $90,000 over 3 years. Second, if you are currently between 50 and 57 with any period of expected reduced income ahead of you, semi-retirement, consulting, a planned sabbatical, even a likely layoff, you're not admitting to yourself yet. You have a Roth conversion window. Use it now. When income drops after leaving traditional employment, you can convert portions of your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA each year, paying taxes at the lower rate, often 10 to 12% or even 0. The window won't exist at 65 when you're doing forced RMDs. Third, the 58% rule is not about pessimism. It's about engineering a plan that doesn't require 65-year-old employment to function. A long-term EBRI study of 3,600 retirees aged 62 to 75 found that 58% had retired earlier than planned. In that study, 38% cited health problems or disabilities as the primary driver, while 23% pointed to employment disruptions. If your retirement plan requires you to be in the 42% who work exactly as long as they planned, you have not built a retirement plan. You've built a best-case projection. The Runway Principle is simple. $600,000 at 55 on the right runway with the right structure becomes more powerful than $1 million at 65 standing at the edge of the sequence of returns danger zone with no conversion history, no Social Security runway, and a healthcare gap no one modeled. It's not the fuel, it's the runway. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And just to be clear, the people who figured this out weren't doing anything exotic. They read the boring documents, they ran the actual numbers. They stopped optimizing for the balance and started optimizing for the position. The magic number Americans think they need to retire comfortably in 2026 is $1.46 million. Almost nobody hits it. The median retirement savings for those aged 55 to 64 is $185,000. And for 65 to 74, it's $200,000. Nowhere near the magic number. The magic number was always the wrong question. Position is the question. The number just distracts you.